Shalom Aleichem, everybody. We're up to Daf Mem Ches today, and we're going to be starting from Mem Zayin Amud Beis. It's like 8 lines from the bottom. Itmar, shtei kite edem amakhishes zeh zu or zoy. Yeah, 2 groups of edem, and they contradict each other. One group says ploni argus and nefesh. The other group says no, shelo argus and nefesh. Now, we don't know who's right, who's wrong, because the Torah trusts 2 Edom always. Now, you have 2 Kitais contradicting. So, what happens now? One of them for sure lying. Is a liar in the house. Amar Avuna, still, Zoy bo b'fnei atzma ida, Zoy b'fnei atzma ida. Each one can go testify on their own. Nishkem problem. No, they can't. In other words, if each of these Kitais would try to testify in a different case, we have to assume that they might be the liars. So, if they might be the liars, so they can't be believed. Now, what happened to Cheskes Kashrus? It's the big kasha on Rav Chisda. Yeah, we're not sure. So every Yid should have a Cheskes Kashrus, unless you can prove him wrong, right? Then, like you have this in the Mishnah Taharis, Shnei Shvilim, right? 2 paths. And you know that in one of them, there's a mace, but you're not sure which one. So, guy walks one path.
We have that in this Masechta.
He's Torah. Remind me, which Daf Raki?
You test.
Wow, what's the Zichur Simon?
Yeah. We have the 2 paths.
Okay, you and I must be doing Zichur for Vedazara. We have to start. 100%.
That's it. Now that the whole world knows.
Not that the whole world knows. Right, exactly. I already said, no, I did it in Bava Basra.
Right.
Then I slacked off in Sanhedrin. But anyway, and Shevuos. So, Bekitzer, so you have Shnei Shvilim, right? Like Daf Yomi, like Raki's saying, it's earlier in the Masechta. And you're not sure which Shvil has a mace. And the guy walks through one of them, and another guy walks through the other one. They're both tar. Cheskes tar. You're not sure which one it is. So over here, you're not sure who is the kat that's lying. So why don't you put a Cheskes Kashrus, just be Samech and a Cheskes Kashrus. That is the big kasha here. And the teretz is Alom Deshe teretz. By Shnei Shvilim, the suffix is independent by each Shvil, right? In other words, you don't have to take into account the other Shvil for a suffix to be born here, right? You're not sure. You look at this Shvil independently. This Shvil might have a mesa there, might not. Then you look at the other Shvil. This Shvil might have a mesa, might not. So you're making, you establish each Shvil on its Cheskes Tahara. But over here, by Shteki De'edem HaMechisha Zu, the only reason why you assume that I'm a liar is because of the other kat. That was the interlinked. So once you need the other kat to create the suffix, so now they're interlinked so intimately because the suffix is only born out of the 2 of them together because of the contradiction between the 2 of them. That's why you have to consider the fact that perhaps each one is a mashaker. Each kat is a shakranim. Okay, so either way, Rav Chisda says about the Sadi Shakir Lamali. Shnei Malvin. So the Gemara is going to say when Rav Huna says Zu ba b'fnei atzma mida, Zu ba b'fnei atzma mida, right? There are 4 variations of Zu ba b'fnei atzma and Zu ba b'fnei atzma. What does it mean, b'fnei atzma? How do you define b'fnei atzma? So Shnei Malvin, Shnei Loivin, Shnei Shtaris. If one kat comes and is signing on a shtar between one malva and loiva, another kat comes and signs another shtar between another malva and loiva. So that's a case of zu ba b'fnei atzma v'ida v'zu b'fnei atzma. That's the hainu plaktai. That's the machlekes Rav Huna Rav Chisda. Whether you could do that. Malva v'loiva is shnei shtaris. What if you have same parties but different loans? Right, same people, malva and loiva, but 2 loans, 2 different loans. And in each loan, you have one of those kitim. Right. One loan you have one kat that said ploni argus and nefesh in a different case, and another loan you have another kat that said lo yarag. Right. So they're signing now to the same people, Malva and Loiva, but on different loans. So the Gemara says Yad Balashtar al Tachtoin. Over here, the halacha will have to be Bein l'Rav Huna, Bein l'Rav Chisda. Right? Common sense says that whatever shtar has the lesser amount, you for sure owe the Loiva for sure owes the Malva that amount because between the 2 of them, right, you have one kat that's kosher, and whatever kat is kosher is at least testifying on the lesser amount. So we made Yad Balashtar al Tachtoin. What about a case of Shnei Malvin v'loiva echad? You have 2 lenders and 1 loiva. Ushnei shtaros, and 2 loans. Haina masnisin. So this is the case of our Mishnah. What's the Mishnah say? Mishnah says that if a guy says to the payalim, right, employee, he says to his employees, the employer says, I'm not going to pay you, go to the store, go to the shop, go to the supermarket, and you can buy in credit, on my credit. You can buy in my bill. So they go, they buy. And now the store owner and the employees come running to the balabais. The employees say, store owner never gave us the merchandise, so we didn't get paid. Store owner says, I gave the merchandise, and I didn't get paid, you have to pay me. So they're each one, here you have Shnei Malvin, the case of Shnei Malvin, they're each one lenders. Why? Because the Poilim worked, so they're like lenders, because they gave something to the balabais. And the store owner also gave something to the balabais. He claims that he gave it on the balabais' behalf, on his bill, on loan, because the balabais on credit, the balabais is going to have to pay him back. So you have Shnei Malvin v'loy ve'echad, and what do we say in the Mishnah? Mishnah says that they each make a Shevuos hanoitlin. Each make a Shevuah that they didn't receive it yet, and the balabais has to pay both of them. Yeah, Banana says differently, but al kaponim, the case of Shnei Malvin v'loy ve'echad, when you have 2 lenders and 1 borrower, and 2 different IOUs, each for each lender, from each lender, that's mamish the case of the Mishnah. And over here, each one would make a Shevuos hanoitlin, and they would get paid from the balabais. What about Shnei Loivin or Malva Echad Shnei Shtaris? What about 2 borrowers, 2 Loivin, and 1 Malva and 2 Shtaris? So the shaila is, each Loiva, right, has the different Eidim. One of those 2 Kita Eidim that were Mukhish in a different case. Right? So one Loiva has one of those Kitas, and the other Loiva has another Kita. So here it's to 1 Malva, and each Loiva Tainas, you know what? The people who signed on my shtar, they're Eidim Shakronim, they're Posla Eidim, so the shtar is no good. And there's no way to prove that the shtar is Taka Kosher, because we don't know who lied in the previous case. We don't know which kat is considered Shakronim. So here, what's the halacha? Could the malva be goiva with the Shnei Shtaris? If he has on those Shnei Shtaris, the 2 loivim, 1 malva and 2 loivim, could it be goiva both loans, or could be goiva nothing? Because each one container could be matcha, that on my shtar they have the Eidim Shakronim signed on it. Gemara says teku, that's taka, a teku tishbi taretz kushis v'aboyes.
Taka teku, I like that.
Huh?
Taka teku.
A taka teku. Oh, is that? Taka teku. Okay. Mosev Ravuna Bar Yehuda. Now the Gemara is going to ask on Rav Chizda's halacha. What Rav Chizda say? When you have Eidim Amakrisha Zayzu, then Rav Chizda says Bahadis Hadish Akrilomali, they both become Posel Eidis, even if they're testifying in other cases. Gemara says we have a brisa not like that. Why? We have by Eidim coming and testifying about Rosh Chodesh Echad Oimer Gevoya Shnei Mardeos. One Eid says he saw that it was above the horizon Shnei Mardeos. Right? Let's say it's a measurement of 2 Mardeos. A Mardeos is a stick that they use to lead the animals when they're working with the animals, to direct them. So it was a very known measurement. The stick was a known measurement. Everybody knew what that means. So that's how they used to talk. Gevoya Shnei Mardeos. That's the amount of height that it was above the horizon. The Eid Echad Oimer Shalish, and the other Eid says, no, it wasn't 2, it was 3. Eiduson Kayemes. The halacha is the Eidus is Kayem. Why? Either Makrish, one Eid says 2, and the other Eid says 3. So one of them is lying. The answer is that, I guess, one Mardeya, Eidim are Asuyim Litois. It's a common mistake, so it's not for certain that you have a liar here. But if Echad Oimer Shloishim, Echad Mechamisha, Eidusim B'Telim. If somebody says there's like too far apart to say there was just an honest mistake. So somebody's for sure lying because one says 3 and the other says 5, then Eidusim B'Telim, then it's Potol, it's Starfel Eidus Acheres. But still, each one of the Eidus can Starfel Eidus Acheres. My love, Eidus Mammon, right? Even Eidus Mammon, so it's not like Rav Chizda, because Rav Chizda says, once you have Eidus Mukreshes, then they can't go and testify separately, independently in other cases. Amar Rav says, no, I can answer the Brisa even according to Rav Chizda. Hu va'acher mitztarfen le'eidus acher shel Rosh Chodesh. That means, let's say the guy who said 3, found another guy who also saw the moon that was 3 Mardeas above the horizon. So he can now be mitztarf with the 3rd guy, and now cancel out the guy who says 5 Mardeas above the horizon, right? Because you have now 2 against 1. And the one can't stand up against the other 2. So in other words, it's nisbarer. The case of the Bryce was nisbarer that the guy said 5, for example, lied. because the guy who had 3 found another guy to agree with him. So in that case, he's saying the MS, and that's what the Brisa meant, that mitzdarf and le'edus acheres, that one of those edus that were mekreshes can now find somebody else in mitzdarf to prove himself correct, to prove himself right. Okay, zuk the heilige Gemara weiter. We learned in the Mishnah. Amar lechen v'niiten li bedinar peiros. Chemini says that I gave you peiros, you didn't pay me. Right? You walk in a store, guy, you have the merchandise, and the guy behind the counter says, "Where's the money? You didn't put down the money." The Balabaya says, "I did. I put the money down. I put it in your pouch. You must have not noticed, but I put it in the pouch. You had a $100 bill. That's from yesterday." He said, "No, I put it there. It's mine. I just gave it to you." Or vice versa. Let's say the Balabayas or the Koina says, "I gave you the money. Where's the payers?" The Chem says, "I gave you the payers. it's in the bag. No, that's from a different store. No, I gave it to you." Right? So now you have a Machlikas Chemveni and Balabayas. So the halacha is that whoever claims he gave it makes a Shevuos and he's potter. Rabbi Yehuda says differently. Rabbi Yehuda says that in the case of the koina, that he has the payros already, and the chenveni says you didn't pay me yet. In that case, the koina can walk away without a shvuah. He doesn't have to make a shvuah. Why not? Because usually the koina doesn't give you the merchandise unless you pay him first. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Okay. Says the Gemara Tanya. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, "Emasai, when am I moided to the Tanakama that if the koina has the payros, he still has to make a shvuah that he paid in order to be potter? That's bisman shah payros tzevura and umanachim. The payros are in a pile outside, and there's a rabbim ushnei and oirin alein between the two of them. And he says, "What do you mean? I paid you." He said, "Didn't pay me." So then the chenveni can force the balabais to make a shvu, and the balabais walks away with nothing without having to pay. But if the balabais already packed the payros into his bag and he put it on his shoulder and he's about to walk away, then for sure he must have paid the chenveni. The chenveni would never allow him to do that. So in that case, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is, in that case, the balabais doesn't have to make a shvuah that he paid already. Because the chazaka, he paid. Why? Because I'm already a muchzik. And the chenveni would never allow me to be a muchzik unless I paid. Now the same halacha, the same machlekes applies to a shulchani with change. Yeah, so also Tanakama says that you make a shvuah in your potter, and the reader says that in the case where the guy already put the change in his pocket, right, for sure he gave the dollar to the shulchani. You know why? Because shulchan never would have allowed him to take the change in his pocket before he gave him the dollar, before he gave him the dinner. Why do you have to give me the same machlekes in a different case? It's just two variations of the same machlekes. Says the iyash min hakamaisa, because if the Tana would have only told me machlekes by chenveni and peiros, I would have said b'hachka amri rabbanan. That's only there did the rabbanan say mishum the peira avida markani. Only there the rabbanan said the chenveni could give you the peiros in your bag even if you didn't pay yet. Why? Because he's eager to get rid of the peiros. Why? Because the peiros they rot quickly. Chenveni can't wait to get it out of his rishos. Here, take it. Yeah, and he'd give it to you sometimes even if he didn't pay. So that's why the balabais, if he claims that he paid, he's got to make a shvuah. Can't be potter without a shvuah because peira avida markani. If you give the markav, he's not going to keep it himself. Aval Mois, the loy markavi, but Mois, shulchani takes his sweet old time. He's like, I'm not going to give it to you right away. First, give me the dollar, then I'll give you the change. So there, maybe the chacham moideh to Rabbi Yehuda that if the guy already has the change in his pocket and he's walking away, for sure he gave the dollar. The shulchani would never be eager enough to give the dollar away before he gave him the change. Yeah, so Gemara says, and if it only would have said over here by a shulchani, I would have said, how come Rabbi Yehuda? Only here did Rabbi Yehuda say the balabais is potter mishvuah if he already has the change in his pocket and walking away. Because the derech of the shulchani is never to give the money before he receives the dollar. Aval bahach, but over here maybe it's moided to the rabbanon that the balabais always has to swear because chenveni kiven the markavi gives it right away. Gemara says tzrichas over here Rabbi Yehuda is also chaylik. So that's why besonder a chiddush and each one that there's a machlokes bein shneim. Says the Gemara weiter, Mishnah said, Kshem sha'amru apigemes ksubasa, v'chein ha'yisoymim lo yiparu. He said that the yisoymim cannot demand a payment of a chayv without a shvuah. The Gemara says, Miman. What does it mean? What's the case we're talking about that a yisoymim can't collect the chayv that their father had by somebody else without a Shevuah. If they have to make a Shevuah, means when Yisayimim come, if you might see Mama from the Loiva, they're saying, they bring a shtar chayv, they're saying, you owe my father money, give us back the money, they have to swear. So the Gemara asks, 1 second, that doesn't make sense. Avu and shakal b'loy shvuah. If the father would have been alive, he would have taken it without a Shevuah. He has a shtar chayv. You can prove it. The inu b'shvuah, so why would the Yarshim, why would the Yisayim have to swear? So that can't be the case of the Mishnah. Whereas this Hachi Kamar, v'cheina Yisayimim, mina Yisayimim, le'paral l'shvuah. That the Yisayimim from the Yisayimim can only demand payment, can only collect the payment if they make a Shevuah. What kind of Shevuah, by the way? The Shevuah is, we didn't find the receipt, a shoiver. In other words, our father didn't tell us anything about the chayv, that it was paid up. So as long as they can make that type of Shevuah, they can collect from the Yasmeh HaLoiva. This is only true if the Malva died first before the Loiva died. Right? Why? Because when the Malva dies first, they inherited from the Malva a shtar chayv. They didn't inherit a Shevuah because the Malva wasn't chayv a Shevuah. Right? When he died, because the Loiva was still alive. He went directly to the Loiva. But if the Loiva died first, so kvar nischayev Malva livnei Loiva Shevuah. And the Malva already became a chuyev and a Shevuah to the Yarshei HaLoiva, because you can't collect from Yisayim without a Shevuah, even if you have a shtar chayv. So he already became a chuyev and a Shevuah. So when he dies, what is he leaving over to his children? He's leaving over the right to collect the chayv with the shtar chayv through a Shevuah, only with a Shevuah. A person cannot leave an inheritance, a Shevuah to his kids. Why takanat? And the answer is very pashut, because the Malva had to swear a Shevuah of Adois. So Malva knows for sure whether the Loiva paid him back or not. So his Shevuah would have been very different than his children. Why? His Shevuah would have been, your father owed me money. For sure, he never paid me. I know, I gave him the money, he never paid me back. But once the Malva dies, the B'nai Malva, they don't know the ins and outs, the workings of their father. So their Shevuah would be very different. Their Shevuah would be, our father didn't tell us anything, we didn't find the receipt, right? There's nothing we know. We just hear shtar chayv, so you got to give it back. So it's a very different kind of Shevuah. So Mamela, that Shevuah they never inherited that kind of Shevuah from their father. So Mamela, there's a gap. There's a disconnect. And Mamela, Eina the Meir Shmuel, one of that's a svara of Rav and Shmuel. It's Rav and Shmuel, the Amri Tarvayu. It's so nice when you have Rav and Shmuel agreeing. The Amri Tarvayu, that if the Loiva dies b'chaye Malva, so now the Malva was Nischai v'Shavua already livnei Loiva, and the Malva dies after, is Eino the Meir Shmuel, the Bnei Malva lose that right to collect the chayv. Okay, now the Gemara is going to be busy over here with this chidush of Rav and Shmuel, but first, Shalchu Kamed Rabbi Lozer. They sent it to Rabbi Lozer in Eretz Yisrael. They asked him, what's the halacha of meis Loiva b'chai Malva, and then the Malva dies. Shvuah Zumativa, what's the halacha with this kind of Shvuah? Shalach lu haYorshin Ishboyan Shvuas Yorshin Lenetli. Argues on Rav and Shmuel. Mamash Yav Chabeseinu Sheberetz Yisrael say, Rabbi Lozer says, no problem. Odamoyer Shvuah Labonav. There's a shtar chayv here. The shtar chayv, you make a Shvuah, whatever Shvuah you can make, and you can collect the chayv. Yeah? That's what Rabbi Lozer says. And Rav and Shmuel says no. So yeah, Machlekas Mamish Chachmei Bovel and Rabbi Lozer and Eretz Yisrael, whether a case of Meis Loiva b'chai Malva, Malva became a Chuy Shvuah of Nei Loiva, and then he dies, whether Odom Meir Shvuah Labonav or not. Shalchu b'nei Rabbi Ami. They sent to the days of Rabbi Ami. Omar, he said, Kulai Shalch Lavazli. How many emails are you sending me? Yeah, you're coming again and again with the same Shiloh from Bovel. First you go to Rabbi Lozer, now you come to me. I guess they knew about it. They were in touch. So he says, Kulai Shalch Lavazli. If I find, in other words, you already heard Rabbi Lozer's teretz. If I find anything else, then I'll send you. If there's an update, I'll let you know. We'll send you a follow-up email. You know, it's like, it reminds me of this joke where like this couple was married for 50 years. And the wife says, Harvey, you never told me. Since we got married, you never told me that you love me. You never tell me you love me. And Harvey says, look, Anna, I told you the first day I married you, I love you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. Yeah? If anything changes, I'll let you know. So Rabbi says, Kulai shach levazli. Yash kechina b'taima. If anything changes in this halacha, I wouldn't send you. I'll tell you. I'll let you know. Hello, Rabbi Ami. So Rabbi said, but Lamaisa, we're already talking and learning, okay? I'll tell you a chiddush. Mad Bedin, what happens if the Malva already summoned the Bnei Loiva to Bezdin? Yeah? He put out the shtar choy. He says, your father, he died, but he owed me money. And now he's mechuyev shvuah because ain't from an ichsei mel b'shvuah. You have to make a shvuah because now they're yisoyim yasmei loivus. So the malvus mechuyev shvuah. But he already summoned them to Bezdin. He's about to swear, umeis, and he dies. So here we say kvanas chayiv malva shvuah ve'ino shvuah labana. There, the malva already was in Bezdin, ready to swear. Right? Bezdin said you have to swear before you can collect from the yisoyim. So now you say eino damar shvuah labana. But lo yamad badin. But if he didn't summon them, they leave to Bezdin yet. Umeis, and he died. So in other words, Bezdin never imposed the Shevuos on him because it never came to the Torah. Then he dies. Yoshin is Shevuos and Shevuos Yoshin and then they can make their own Shevuos and take because their father was never really became mechuyev in a Shevuos in Bezdin. Maskal of Nachman. Nachman says that's not a. Rabbi Ami says I tell you a chiddush. There's a halacha that Rav and Shmuel who say Eino Damar Shvuah Labanav is only if Omad Malva beBezdin with a Bnei Loivin who's ready to chayiv a Shevuos in Bezdin. Then you say Eino Damar Shvuah Labanav. I don't understand. If you say Eino Damar Shvuah Labanav, it means a guy was mechuyev Shevuah, and if he dies, he can't be meirish that Shevuah to his kids. So what's the difference if he came to Bezdin or not? Bezdin is not imposing that Shevuah on him. That's the halacha. As soon as the loiva dies, that's the halacha. You can only collect with a Shevuah. So who cares if he came to Bezdin, he didn't come to Bezdin, even if he didn't come to Bezdin. Eino Damar Shvuah Labanav, according to Rabbi Shmuel, there's no chiluk between Amad Badin or Lo Amad Badin. Hello, Rav Nachman. Isa Rabbi Shmuel, Isa, Lessa. Nachman says, look, I'm not sure the halacha is like Rav and Shmuel, but if you hold like Rav and Shmuel, you got to hold across the board. Amad Badin or Lo Amad Badin, doesn't matter. Eino Damar Shvuah Labanav. And Lessa, even if it's Amad Badin. Okay, so the Gemara says, wow, from this phraseology of Rav Nachman, Isa, Lessa, Alma Masapkalim. See, Rav Nachman is mesupik whether Allah is like Rav and Shmuel or like Rabbi Lazar. Adam Ma'ir Shvuah Labanav Adenisht. Gemara asks, is that true? Rav Nachman had a suffix in this. For Omer Rav Yosef bar Menyume, Ovad Rav Nachman Uvda Yachloiku. Rav Nachman, in a case, remember we had in the Mishnah a case of Shnein Chashudin ala Shvuah, right? Guys avoid doing mixas. Let's say he's a chashud. Usually swear and he'd be potter on the other half. But let's say he can't swear. He's a chashud. The Mishnah had a whole list of who's chashud, right? The Mishnah had Sachab Kuvya. Mishnah said they caught him swear. He had a background check, and they caught him swear. Shvuos apikad, shvuos eidah, shvuos afilu, shvuos shal. The Mishnah says, right? He's got a history of lying, so he's pasul shvuah. So usually he would swear by doing mixas be potter, but now he's pasul. So now the shvuah gets flipped onto the teveya. But what if the teveya is also chashud? So they both can't swear. So we got a machlokes in the Mishnah whether chazra shvuah l'mkaima or yachleiku. Now, Rav Nachman paskind yachleiku. Yeah, he said yachleik. You have to swear. You have to split it. So the halacha is, so if he says yachleiku over there, so how could Rav Nachman be mistapik whether in our case the halacha is like Rav and Shmuel or not? Right? If the din is yachleiku over there in the Mishnah, b'shneim chashudin, because they can't swear, so the din then the din has to be yachleiku over here also, because the Yisayim can't swear. And you see, Rav Nachman says, any time you can't swear, the din is yachleiku. So how could you tell me Rav Nachman says that he's mesupik, whether Allah is like Rav and Shmuel, Adar Nisht, whether Adam Meir Shmuel Labanav or not, ilesa b'chlal, and they can't be goyva. Here he says in a different case, in a parallel case where he can't swear, he says yachleiku. So it can't be that he's mesupik. Gemara says the dvar of the Rabbi Meir Amar. Rav Nachman says the suffix is only taka in Shitas Rav Meir in the Mishnah. Rav Meir says chazra shavua l'mkaima. He doesn't say yachleiku. So according to Rav Meir chazra l'mkaima. So here the shaila becomes: do you say chazra shavua l'mkaima even by yisoymim who can't swear, right? In other words, why? Because this type of shavua by Yisayimim is only a shavua derabanan. So the shaila becomes: do we say on a shavua derabanan mitech she'eni yachal l'shav v'mashalim? Maybe only chazer shavua l'mekayman, like Rabbi Abba explained that mitech she'eni yachal l'shav v'mashalim. That's only if you're originally mechuyev shavua deraisa. You can't swear shavua deraisa. That's when we say chazer shavua l'mekayman can't swear pay. But here, in the case of Rav and Shmuel by Yisayimim, that's a shvuah imposed by the Rabbanan. So do we say, Right? That's a suffix already, whether you hold like Rav and Shmuel, is that called Eini Yochel L'Shava, because Eino D'Mer Shmuel L'Bonav or not? So it's only in Shitas Rabbi Meir that Rav Nachman said, I have a suffix in Rav and Shmuel, but V'leilo Yisrael, he anyways paskin like Rabbi Yosi, that Yechlaiku. Okay, bottom line is, right, it's a suffix. It's a suffix of paskin like Rav and Shmuel. Masav Rav Oishia. Now we're going to ask a bunch of kashas from different Mishnayos, different brises on Rav and Shmuel. Again, Rav and Shmuel say, Meis loiva b'chaye malva. Now the malva became a b'chuyev shvua to the yasmei haloiva, and then he dies. Then the yasmei malva can't collect it anymore because ain't the meir shvua lebanav. Gemara says Masav Rav Oishia Meisa. Here we're talking about almana. Almana dies, and she didn't collect before she collected the ksuba from the Yersha Abal. The halach is Yersha mazkir nas ksubasa ad eser b'chamesh shanim. Her Yorshim can collect the ksuba, her ksuba, the Yersha ha'isha, right? Can collect her ksuba, the chayv that she has over the Yersha ha'bal, for 25 years. Bizman shemei sabal. Why 25? Rashi brings down over here, Gemara Ksubas, that it's up to 20. The statute of limitations. That at 25 years, if it passed 25 years, she was probably mechilat. So mechila over here. You can assume there was a mechila. But within 25 years, they can collect it. How could they collect it? Eino de Moirish Shavua Labanav. And this woman died, right, after the husband. The husband died first. And this woman was, if she would have wanted to collect a ksuba, she would have had to swear to the Yersha Abal. So that when she dies, she's only Moirish Shavua Labanel. So it sounds like the Mishnah, it wouldn't be a problem. Within 25 years, they can make the Shavua and collect their mother's ksuba. But why? Mother only left them a Shavua that can only collect with a shvua, like she was able to, but not without a shvua she wasn't able to. Say, ain't no dvar shvua l'banav according to Rabbi Shmuel. How do you learn the Mishnah over there? It says the Gemara, "Och ma'eskinon shenishba meisa." You're right. If she wouldn't have sworn in her life, then ain't no dvar shvua l'banav. You can't. They wouldn't be able to collect it. But here we're talking about where she made a shvua before she died, but she never got to collect it practically. So Mamela Omeisa, so now the Yersha Ha'isha could collect that ksuba because she already swore. Okay, Toshama, another kasha from a different Mishnah. Nosa Rishoina Umesa, Nosa Shnia Umesu. So what happens if his first wife dies? The guy gets married, first wife dies. So if his first wife dies, he doesn't have to pay ksuba. Why not? Because you only pay ksuba if you divorce her or the Baal dies first. But if she dies first, she loses the rights to ksuba or even the Yarshim, right, in this case. So Nosa Rishoina Umesa. Then he married another woman, Nasa Shnia, Umesu. Then he married another woman, and then he died. Now, the first wife did not have rights to a ksuba because she died first, right? So the Yorshim have no rights. Her Yorshim for the first wife have no rights to collect a ksuba because the mother wasn't entitled to a ksuba because she died in the lifetime of her Baal. The second wife died after her husband. So when her husband died, she was already entitled to the ksuba, to collect the ksuba. Now her yarshim want to collect that ksuba from the Yerusha. So says the Mishnah, Shnia v'Yersha, koidman l'Yersha Rishayna. What are we talking about Yersha Rishayna? They first collect the ksuba of their mother, right? The Yersha Shnia, the Yershim of the second wife, collect the ksuba from their mother before the Yersha Rishayna, who might be entitled to other rights. Ksuba's been in Dichron and other stuff, but that's only B'teres Yerusha. Here it's B'teres Star Chayv, right? They're collecting a chayv that their mother had on the Baal. So they come first, and they can collect it from the other Yarshim. So what do you see from over here? You see, not like Rav and Shmuel, because over here, they're collecting Yasmeha Malva, are collecting from Yasmeha Loiva. The second wife, before she died, she swore that she's entitled to the ksuba. She didn't collect it yet, umesa, and she died before she was able to collect it. So now they're entitled to collect it. But avad, if she didn't swear b'chayel, her yorshim can never get it because ain't no the shvua lebana. Says the word toshama. Another raya from Mishnah Ksubas Pevov. What are we talking about over here? The Baal is masna, makes a tanai with his wife, that anytime she comes, or her Yarshim come, and are goy with the ksuba, they wanted to make a shvua, that it wasn't paid up, and they can just collect it without a shvua. Says the Mishnah over there, avul Yarshav, but as far as his Yarshim are concerned, mashbiyan oisa, The es Yorsheho v'esabon b'rshusa. Even the Yorshim need to swear from the Yorshe to the Yorshe Habal that their mother didn't receive the ksuba yet, and then they can get paid. What do you mean, Akasha and Rav and Shmuel? Because here you see the Yasme Amalva, right? Her Yorshim can swear to the Yorshe Habal and collect the ksuba. I Eino Damar Shmuel Abanav. What says Omer of Shmailetz Dadim Ketani Oisa Ba'almana. When we say Mashbi and Oisa, we're talking about the Almana, she's still alive. The Yorsheha, right? We're talking about the Yorsheha can demand the ksuba, that's Bigrusha. That's when she got divorced, and there, right? Yorsheha Bigrusha means that he divorced her, and then she died. So in the case of divorce, she was never mechuyev shvuah. She could have collected it straight from the husband without a shvuah. So she wasn't meirish the shvuah. She was meirish the chayv. That's why it works. Okay. Says the Gemara, another kasha Rav and Shmuel. You see, Mamash attacking Rav and Shmuel. The Amri Tarvayu. It's a big force. They're both saying that again. What are the Rav and Shmuel are saying? Yeah, what's the chiddush? That's what we have to remember from Daf Memches for sure. At least this. I'm going to ask Raki in a moment what Zichru's simon for this is. Yeah?
I know this is Maya. It's always a Maya.
Mayach.
Brainiac.
Okay, Brainiac. Okay. So the Chiddush of Rav Shmuel again is that Nes Loiva B'chaye Malva. Now the Malva comes B'chuyev Shvuah to the B'nei Loiva because he can't collect from Yisrael without a Shvuah. Then he dies. Eino Damar Shvuah Labon of the Yasmei Malva can never collect it from the Yasmei Loiva. So the Ben is greater in certain ways than his father. Shahaben goiva bein b'shvua ubein shaloi b'shvua. The Ben can be goiva sometimes with the shvua and sometimes not a shvua from the Yorsha Aloiva. Va'av, but the father, the Malv himself, ain't a goiva ela b'shvua, can only be goiva the shvua. Heichadam, what does this mean? The meis loiva b'chayim Malv. We're talking about a case that the loiva died when the Malv was still alive. Iktoni shaben goiva bein b'shvua ubein shaloi b'shvua b'shvua shvua siyarshin. Shaloi b'shvua k'b'shum Gamliel that says, what does Shmuel say? They're Adam. They're a mayed that the father said l'fnei moisoi that the shtar is not paid up. Then the Yershim, the Yasmei Amalva don't have to swear because you have Adam saying that already. But a kaponim, what do you see? That if you don't have Adam, they make a shvuah sayarshim, and they can collect from the Yasmei Aloiva. I eino damar shvuah labanav to Kashem Rav and Shmuel. Amar Rabbi Yosef Amari Beishamai the Amri Shtara Omed Ligvois Kegavei Dami. No, this brisa is Beishamai who have a chiddush. Beishamai say that Shtara Omed Ligvois. If you have a shtar chayv and you can collect the money with this shtar chayv, it's already kegavei dami, which means it's already tzivitz collected. Which means we consider the malva a muchzik already in that money. For the fact that you're holding a shtar chayv. Yeah, and that shtar chayv is the key to collect the money. If you're holding on to the key, it's already as if the door is open. It's like kegavei dami. It's like as if it's collected. Ema mela what? The malva is already considered a muchzik in that money. If it's considered a muchzik in that money, so the Shevuos HaYorshim is not coming to me moitzi moment b'chalal. It's coming to me machzik the moment that their father already had. And in such an instance, in such a case, in such a lumdus, here, Avada, everybody agrees to Rav and Shmuel that there is a Shevuos HaYorshim because the Shavua is not accomplishing a Hitzoas Mama from the Yasmei Aloiva. Because the Yasmei Amalva already considered muchzik, because the Malva was muchzik, because he had a shtar chayv. And therefore, can't ask from here to Rav and Shmuel. Ikla Rav Nachman l'Sura. So one time, Rav Nachman came to Surah. Allah Gaber Chizda Rabbi Rav Huna. Rabbi Chizda Rabbi Huna came to him. Amru Lei, they said, Leisam Har, Naklo Rav Shmuel. Oh, Mamash, we have the God Lador. We have Rav Nachman here. So he said to Rav Nachman, please, let's go. Let's uproot this halacha of Rav and Shmuel, where if Nes Loiva B'chayim Malva, then the Malva dies, the Yasmei Malva can never collect the chayv. Right? They're losing the money. Let's uproot this chiddush. Amar Lahu. Ikapali v'asok halani parsi. You think I traveled all this distance? This is all I came for, to be oiker halacha of Gedolei Rabbi saying Rabbi Shmuel. So I don't want to be oiker there halacha. But the max I can do, the best I can do is don't be moisef on this chiddush. Which means what? Kegoin mai. Which means what? The Omer of Papa poigim es shtara yameis yershin nishbash v's yershin v'noitl. That anybody what's poigim es shtara? We had it before also. That if somebody admits that the shtar chayv that says you owe me $100, $50 is paid up already, so that's a pagam of the shtar, because the shtar says 100, and you admitted the shtar is not absolutely 100% correct, because you already paid up part of it. And then he dies. There, the Yasmei Amalva swear to the Yasmei Haloiva, and they can be Goiva the other half of the Chayv. Now, according to Rav Shmuel, you wouldn't be able to do that, because Eino Domer Shmuel Abonav. But says Rav Nachman, since Rav and Shmuel didn't talk about a case of Pegam Eshtari, they talked about the case of a Koy for a Koil, right? It was a good star, and not even a Koy for a Koil, it was a good star. You owed him the whole 100. So Rav Nachman says, only keep the halach of Rav and Shmuel where they pass on the case that they pass in a beferish. Don't go to a different case. So the different case we pegam ashtara hagam, it's the same halacha, same lamda, same svara, but you don't have to apply the halach of Rav and Shmuel to a case that they didn't talk about before. Says the Gemara, let's say another maisa where l'chayra you could deviate from, you could veer off from the Rav and Shmuel's chidush is a case of the guy dies and he left an ariv, right? The loiva dies first, right? The guy owes the money, and he had an ariv, he left over an ariv, and then the malva dies. It's also not a case, the exact case Rav and Shmuel talked about, because the case of Rav and Shmuel there was no ariv. So in this case, the Yasmei Malva can collect it from the Yasmei Loiva. I guess not from the Yasmei Loiva. From the Arav, excuse me. They can make a shua and collect it from the Arav because the Rav Shmuel only said they can't collect them the Yasmei Haloiva, but this is not exactly the same. What do you mean? When you're collecting from the Arav, essentially you're really collecting from the Yasmei Haloiva, because what's going to happen after you collect from the Arav? He's going to run to the Yasmei Haloiva and take money away from them. Right? So Mamela, that's considered the case that Rav and Shmuel talked about the Farish, and you have to uphold the halach of Rav and Shmuel that the Yasmei Malva can't swear, not even to the Ariv, and they lose the money. Says the Gemara, what about a case where the loiva didn't have any children? It's not Yasmei Haloiva, it's the acha of the loiva. Right? So now the loiva dies first, leaves over a brother. Then the malva dies, and the malva leaves over kids. The kids want to collect the chay from the brother of the loiva, but they can't swear because they ain't the marriage for Labanov. So you have the halach of Rav and Shmuel. So Sava Rami Bar Chama Lamem, he wanted to say, no, this would be a case. It's not exactly mafurish, the case of Rav and Shmuel. This is a ach. Rav and Shmuel talked about Yasmei Haloiva when he had children. That's mamash the same case. What's the difference if the Lashon HaShavua that the Yasmei Malva have to make is Abba or Achi? Right? Either way, they're making a Shavua that they couldn't inherit from their father. Oh, I said it wrong. I stand corrected. I'm realizing. The Ach wasn't the brother of the Loiva, it was the brother of the Malva. The Loiva has Yisoimim. So again, Hud the Shachiv, we'll do it one more time. Hud the Shachiv, right? This Malva died after the Loiva died already. V'shavak Acha, the Malva left a brother. So Rabbi Yoel wanted to say that since the Malva left a brother, so maybe it's not the same case of Rav and Shmuel, because the Rav and Shmuel talked about the case of the Malva left Yisoimim. And it's a different kind of shvuah. It's a different lashon shvuah. So Mila here, you don't have to uphold the chiddush of Rav and Shmuel. So Rava says, no, there's no difference. Mali shlepik dani abi, mali shlepik dani achi. You can't be goiva the chayv. Even the brother can't be goiva the chayv. Omer chama hashtal leitmer leitchasa leikamar v'leikamar like Rav Shmuel like Rabbi Lazar. Since now we don't have achra who the halach is like. Hay dayana the ovad Rav Shmuel ovad, the ovad Rabbi Lazar ovad. Omer Rav Papa. Also for the same reason, Hayshtar the Yasma, the star of the Yisoimei HaMalva, they come with the star that the Yasmei Haloiva, that Loiva owe their money, owe their father money. Lemikra Kanila, you can't tear it up. Also, you can't collect with it. Why? You can't collect it because maybe all like Rav and Shmuel ain't other Shmuel Abana. They can't make a shvuah. And Mikra Lekarina Lane also can't tear it up. Because there's some Tayonim that pass like Rabbi Lazar. So Mamela, you leave the star in the Rishus of the Yasmei HaMalva, and you leave it there until they find a dayan, I guess, that can paskin like Rabbi Lazar, right? And then they can collect it. Who do you know David Rabbi Lazar? There was taka dayan that Allah Lamaisa paskin like Rabbi Lazar allowed the Yasmei Malva to collect the money. Have it surva mirabanan b'matei. There was a young Talmud Chacham in a city. Omar Lei said to the dayan, "Aitina igartem amarav. I'm going to bring a whole letter, right? A kol kaira from all the Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael." The badats, everything, the less you're passing wrong over here. Put your chayrim. Omar lei, l'chi taisi, go ahead, go bring. You bring me all the signatures of the Gedolei Eretz Yisrael, and then I'll consider it. This Talmud was very frustrated. He came to Rav Chama, and he told him the story. Rav Chama said, this is the case of a dayan passing like Rabbi Elazar. It's okay, because we know that's the rule. Since it's not itmar, we don't have a achron, the halacha, it's like Rav Shmuel Rabbi Elazar, so a dayan is open, but the Evri passing like Rabbi Elazar, you can do it. Okay, says the Gemara Vayter. Mishnah said a list of people that are nishboin shalei b'taina. Gemara says, what? Nishboin, they make a Shevuos stam voluntarily on their own volition. Nobody is claiming on them. Nobody has a claim on them, and they're just making Shevuos. What are they, fools? Gemara says, Hachika Omar. Ve'elu nishboin shalei b'taina is bari, el b'taina is shema. These are the people that are not nishboin b'taina is bari, but they're nishboin b'taina is shema. Okay, in other words, they don't have a certain claim, 100% claim on you. They don't have proof. They're not coming with a tainas vadai. They say, I think you might be cheating, you might be taking money. Swear that you're not. Who are those people? Hashutfen v'harisen. Right, the Mishnah, a whole list. Harisen and Petropin and Ben Bayis. One of them is Ben Bayis. Ben Bayis is a guy, the brother, who takes care of the Tfus Sabayis of the Yerusha for all the other brothers. He's the businessman of the family. So Tana Ben Bayis Sha'amru says the Braisa, when we said Ben Bayis, it's not just loisha nichnas v'yotzi b'rav. It's not just that he's mashgiach. He's like, watching all the nechasim, walking around from field to field. Elam machnas le'poilim, mitzli poilim, machas aperes, mitzli peres. He's dealing with all the invoices. Yeah, he has the bank account information, and he's paying, and he's coming, and he's going. Then that brother, if the other brothers are machshadim, they're choishadim, they suspect him that he might be taking more than his fair share, then they can force a shvuah even if it's a tainas shema. Why taka? Because these people tend to rationalize, right? They're saying, anyways, I'm doing so much on behalf of the family, right? Or I'm working the field, the others working the field, or the shuttif, maybe one shuttif feels like he's doing more than the other shuttif. So there's a lot of rationalization going on over there, and that's why if one of them is suspicious, then he could swear, he can force a shvuah without a tainas vadai. At least, it has to be a taina of shtei kesef. It has to be a taina shem on shtei kesef. Right? The original taina has to be shtei kesef. And I'm suspecting you of taking tli shtei kesef. Kaman. Says the Gemara, Shmuel. Allah is like Shmuel. Shmuel says that even if the kfira is on a pruta, and the haidah is on a pruta, you have a moed mix as long as the original claim was shtei kesef. So it sounds like he says, as long as the original claim is on shtei kesef, I can force a shvuah. Or Tana Rav Chila Siyul Rav, but Rav argued. Rav says that. Rav says, excuse me. Let's call back. So Gemara says, Rav said that you need the kfirus hataina also shtei kesef. It sounds like over here, Rav Yisrael Yom Nachman says you don't. Ema kfirus taina karav. So you're right. You have to edit the lashon, and say kfirus taina. You need kfirus taina shtei kesef like Rav. Says the Gemara, Cholku Ashutfen V'Arisen. Yeah. Once they took their share, let's say the Shutaf went home with his profits, the Arisen went home with his payers, and the brothers already split the Yerusha. Now it's too late, and then they realize, you know what? Maybe the Shutaf stole, or maybe Tainas Shema, maybe the Aris took more than his fair share. Or the brothers are choshid, the Ben Bayis, the main brother, the manager, the business manager, then it's too late, right? Cholku ashut v'arisen, then it's too late. You can't be mashbiya b'tayna shema. Now the Gemara says, what about iboilu mahu legalgul b'drabanan? What if this brother who's suspicious, right, and now we can't force him to swear b'tayna shema because they already divided the nechasim. What if he became a chuyiv in a shvuah d'Rabbanan elsewhere? Let's say somebody else, claimed that he owed him $100 and he was koifer akoil. Now he's chayv shvuah sesses. Shvuah sesses d'Rabbanan. So can you be megalgal this shvuah, right? The suspicious shvuah that the brothers wanted to impose on it, but they couldn't because they already divided the nechasim. Can you be megalgal on a shvuah d'Rabbanan? The Gemara says, Toshima, I'll bring you a Rav Mabraisa. Lo v'haimenu erev shvius, or lo matzoy shvius nasod l'shutafei orus, in megalglan. That if a guy borrowed from his friend erev shmito, and Matzah Shvita, they became a shutaf and arvis. The halacha is, you can't be megalgal the shvuah that you had on this loiva, this very loiva that eventually became your partner, right? So you have a shvuah, you can force him to swear, koifer hakol, Shevuos hesses. You can't be mechayivim a shvuah and be megalgal the shvuah b'tainis shema of Matzah Shvius, Matzah Shmita. Right? What is this taima, the love of an Erev Shvius? It's only because, why can megalgal that chiv shvuah? Because love of an Erev Shvius, the Asa Shvius of Kate, because Shvius suspended, right, eliminated the chayv, dissolved the chayv already, because Shmita dissolves the chayv. But a shar shnei shvuah, but if let's say the other years of Shmita, like the second or third year of Shmita, where beginning of the year I lent you something, you became a chuy v'shvuah derabbanan because you're, let's say you koifer hakoil, and now at the end of the year we became shutfin, right? Why would a guy become a shutaf for the guy who he has a claim over and he's denying it? Not sure, but that's the case. Now, shar sheni shvuah megalgal, then you could be megalgal the shvuah based on a taina shema even after you divided the nechasim or you split the profits, and be megalgal because mechuyev shvuah on the original chayv that he was kafar, right, in the beginning of the year. It's only because, in the Bryce, only because Erev Shvius and Matzah Shmita, because the chayv is dissolved. But in the case where it's Shar Shnei Shavua, it sounds like I could be megalgal on a Shavua derabbanan. This is loy tema. No, don't be medaik in the Bryce this way. Ho Shar Shnei Shavua megalgal. Don't be medaik in that way. Ela ema nasal yishutaf et oris Erev Shvius ula Matzah Shvius lova amenu. That he became a shutaf for an oris Erev Shmita, right? And l'matzoi shvius lava amenu megalgalin. In other words, if it's the other way around, then you can be megalgal the chiyuv on the chiyuv shvuah that you have matzah shvius, because that was never dissolved, right? They still have a chayv. It's matzah shmita. Megalgal the shvuah that I wanted to give you erev shvius based on a tainas shema that you could do. Gemara says, really, that's the diak of hadiktanah. That's before in the Bryce over there. Nasal shutaf or erev shvius. You flip the case. Then you can use the chiyuv shvuah that he has matzah shmita because he's koifer hakol. That shvuah derabbanan that he has to make, and use that and be megalgal the shvuah on erev shvius for a shutaf and a aris b'tainas shema. So Gemara says, shma min megalgalim b'derabbanan shma min osa al kach. You can't make that diak, so you have to make the different diak that we made in the ratio. And therefore, you have a raya that you keep megalgal shvuah on a shvuah derabbanan. Okay, that's the halacha. Omer Avuna, last shtikala perik over here in Perikol and Jabon, the seventh perik. Lakoil megalgalin. This shvuah that we said, megalgal on a shvuah derabbanan on another shvuah, that is true for every baldin chutz misacher, except for an employee, right? Remember we said an employee is one of the people who if he claims that the employer never paid him, then instead of the employer swearing that I paid him and being pater, employee swears and he gets the money. It's called a Shevuos hanoit l'tkanas chachamim. Why? Because we said earlier, because sometimes the balabais thinks he paid, he really didn't, because he's busy, and so he'll swear that he paid, believing that he paid, but he really didn't. But the sacher usually he remembers because he knows when the money comes in his pocket, the money comes into the account. So really we trust the sacher in that case. So Gemara asked earlier, then why does he have to swear at all? If the balabais tends to forget, let the sacher just take the money based on a claim alone. Why does he have to back it up with a shvuah? And the teretz is lahafas daita shabalabais, the Gemara said, right? Just because we want to be meifas das shabalabais. So since the whole shvuah is coming to be meifas das shabalabais, right? Really, essentially, it's not merely mechuyev shvuah. So you can't use that shvuah as a basis to be megalgal other shavuos. That's the chiddush over here. But chutz misacher, the shavuos hasacher really shouldn't be made at all. The sacher shouldn't have to make that shavuah. We just did it as daita shabalabais, so we're not going to allow gilgal shavuah on such a type of shavuah. If chizdam lakoil ein makilan, chutz misacher the makilan, he has a different way of phrasing it. He says that different balei dinam, we're not makel on them. In other words, we're going to use a shavuah derabbanan that it becomes mechuyev to be megalgal other shavuos. But a sacher, right, an employee, we're going to be makel on, we're not going to allow the balabayas to be megalgal another shvuah. What is my benayu? What's the difference how to express it? It's the same halacha. What is the ikka benayu liftayach lay? Whether you encourage or you advise or you can suggest that you should be megalgal another shvuah, right? So if Chizda says that even if Um, right? Bezdin will be Matzia when the guy has to make a Shevuah D'Rabbanan, and he'll suggest, hey, do you have any of the Shevuos you want to include in this Shevuah? Bezdin will offer it. So Rav Huna says, Ein Megalgalin means that Bezdin is not Matzia. Bezdin doesn't suggest it. But if the Tevei himself wants it, right, Bezdin is Pesach. When he says Lakol Megalgala means that Bezdin, Rashi says, Bezdin is Megalgal. Bezdin will open the Tevei and say, look, you have an opportunity here. And Rav Chizd is Lakol Ein Makilin, it's Bezdin doesn't do that. You have to do it on your own. Okay, so Shaila is, that's Machlek. Shaila is whether when it comes to Gilgul Shvuah, does Bezdin suggest it? Bezdin raises the topic of Gilgul. Now this poor guy makes a Shvuah. Do you have any other Shvuahs you want to throw in there? According to Rav Huna, Bezdin does it, and according to Rav Chizda, they don't do it. Okay, last Shikul Gemara, Shvius Mishametes. The last line of the Mishnah was that Shvius is Mishamet, the Chiyuv Shvuah also, on the Tvias Milva. Right? Not just the milva itself, it doesn't just dissolve the chayv, it also dissolves any chiyuv shvuah that's born out of the chayv. Even the dibur, which is, what's dibur? Chiyuv shvuah, shmita is also mishamet. The big question over here is, if the chayv itself is dissolved, why do I need a pasuk to tell me that the chiyuv shvuah on the chayv is dissolved? Right? If the chayv is dissolved, the vadi, you're not going to make a shvuah anymore. I need a pasuk to tell me that if the chayv is dissolved, you also don't have to make a shavua on the chayv. Chayv is anyways dissolved, the Rishonim ask. Okay, we'll leave with the kasha, why not? Hadrin alach kol anishboyin, hadrin alach kol anishboyin, hadrin alach kol anishboyin. Alright, we'll stop over here.